Well, I bought a new bike, and it's a Nordern 901 Expedition. There are a bunch of reasons why I chose the 901, but one of them was definitely the look of the bike. I love the styling. I am still keeping my 701 in the stable for the more technical rides, but now it was time to plan my first adventure for the 901. So I planned a ride that was suitable for bigger bikes, and it was a nice 3-day loop around Sydney, mainly on dirt. Weather forecast was awesome, and so I was on my way to Laguna to meet up with my buddies for this trip. And I'd given them clear instructions. I said, leave your mullets and leave your little bikes at home. This is going to be a big bike trip. Now, when I got to Laguna, my buddies did what they always do. They put shit on me about my new bike, particularly the color of the panniers. They came out with the postie jokes and reckoned I looked like I was riding a postie bike. So day one was a 278-kilometer ride from Laguna through Wollombi National Park. Then we're going to go across the top and then ride the track where Craig ended up having to get rescued by the helicopter. I set off on my sparkling new bike and I tucked in behind Stu on his DR650. And you could not get two more contrasting bike sounds than the farting sounds of the DR650 and the twin of the 901. I love that track out from Laguna. It's not that technical, but there's plenty just to keep you on your toes and having fun. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you take a new, shiny bike out on its first ride. You haven't quite got the hang of it, and you're sort of overly worried about dropping it and scratching it. But it didn't take long before I really got the hang of the 901, and I just started loving it, especially off-road. And the postie jokes just kept coming thick and fast on the center. Now, I knew they were just jealous of my sparkling new bike, so it was like water off a duck's back. We got onto the Commission Road Trail, and it just reminded me of how lucky we are to have so much amazing wilderness pretty much on our doorstep in Sydney. And it didn't take long before we all found ourselves in our adventure riding happy place. At the end of Commission Road, you have to go through private property, but I'd spoken to the landowner and gotten permission, so I had no dramas about going through that part. The road section across the top of Wollombi National Park is actually really picturesque and scenic, and it's fun to ride. There's some great twisty sections across there. So then we turned on Upper Bylong Way, which is the road where our buddy Craig broke his leg and had to be rescued by helicopter just over a year ago. And it was really nice to hear that the locals had won their fight not to turn it into a coal mine. You know, it's such stunning country that I think it's too nice just to be a coal mine. As we got closer to the accident site where Craig crashed last year, the conversation turned to that day and the helicopter rescue. And what the guys didn't know is that Craig had actually contacted me and wanted to know what time we were passing through. And he was actually planning a little surprise to meet the guys on the track. I didn't know what he had in mind, so I was kind of excited just to see what was going through that mind of his. And as we approached the crash site, the centre exploded with a mix of confusion and laughter. No one could quite work out what they were looking at. Craig had dressed a dummy in his riding gear and left it on the exact spot of the fateful accident a year ago. Craig was hiding just around the corner, and once our reactions had sort of played out, Craig trotted up and joined us. And then we just spent a bit of time having a laugh and also just reminiscing about that fateful day when Craig broke his leg and we had to get the helicopter to come in and rescue him. So well played, Goldpole. You really surprised the group, for sure. And HD had already claimed Craig's dummy for his riding partner for the trip.
It's got like a little hairy chest like HD's. Look at it.
So after that, we said goodbye to Craig and we continued our ride through this beautiful landscape in front of us, and we made our way to Kandos for the night. And it was a cold and foggy start to the day. And I was actually excited about that because I knew we were going to start by exploring Kapiti Valley, and I thought the fog running through that valley would give us some amazing images.
Excessive, Frank.
So here's the plan for day 2. We're going to start riding through Kapiti Valley and just do some exploration. And then after that, through Turon, down through Sunny Corner, and then we're spending night 2 in Oberon. The fog was awesome. I love riding through fog and sort of atmospherics like that. And we made our way out to the beautiful Kapiti Valley, and we were heading to Glen Davis. We decided to stop and just put the drone up just to capture some of the amazing fog. Then we continued exploring further into Kapiti Valley. We tried to get up on a track called the Tramway, but unfortunately that was locked by a gate. So we explored some local tracks around there, and then Stuart told us about a track nearby that was quite amazing. And this amazing track is actually located right here. And if you see it in 3D, I think you'll appreciate just what an amazing landscape it is. So we were going to climb up onto the plateau on the top and then ride out to these 2 different observation points. And you can see they have pretty incredible views. The climb up was reasonably steep, but the track was so smooth that it was actually pretty easy to do on these big bikes. And as we got near the cliffs became quite spectacular.
Right goes to the summit, that goes out and does a little loop.
When we reached that first lookout point, we got off the bikes for a while, threw the drone up, and just enjoyed these incredible views. Then we headed out onto the other trail just to make our way to lookout number 2. And there was a few reasonably steep sort of little climbs, but there was nothing too hard for us to do on the big bikes. And when we got to lookout number 2, we were rewarded with just spectacular views. I put my little drone up for a shot, but I didn't realize the SD card was full. So this is the view from the actual goggles. Then we rode back down through the beautiful cliff cuttings and made our way towards Nordern National Park. And this ride is also really stunning. You know, it's dirt road, so it's super easy to ride, but the views and the riverside that you're riding along are just stunningly beautiful. Then, as we got to the pine forests of Sunny Corner, we just felt like we're in a playground, and we just went and we just rode around the different tracks, backwards and forwards, just having a blast. We had a blast playing in Sunny Corner. Finally, after that long day, the track I had planned had us going through a river crossing, and it looked a bit sketchy, but HD just dove straight in.
Well, let's see what Still Waters does over there.
And found himself balked. The middle of the river was okay, but in the still water on the far side, there was deep, deep silt.
Oh yeah, now I'm in. Now I've got wet socks.
After a little help from Nick,
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
HD got his bike out of the silt, and we got out of the river and made our way to Oberon. Day 3, and I thought the guys might have run out of their postie joke material by now, but I was wrong. They were pretty relentless and they had deep reserves. Hey Brent, maybe you could enter the postie challenge with your bike. Hey Brent, we found some matching riding gear. It went on and on.
The Bush Geeks followers call?
We started things off with a nice breakfast and then prepared for what was going to be probably the most technical part of the trip. We were going to start by heading out to Canangra Walls and just checking them out. And then we're going to do the Cave to Cave track and cross the Cowmung River, and then back through Wombeyan Caves Road to Mittagong and then Sydney. Another misty, foggy start to the day, which was beautiful. Nick was being his typical, usual self. When he wasn't standing there throwing blue steel poses, he was trying to annoy HD. He was trying to record a time lapse.
It's a hand. Every time your hand's out, it's taking a photo. Which is good.
Quite a number of the riders hadn't been to Canangra Walls before, so I think they were blown away when they saw what was in front of them. Then we headed off onto the Morong Creek Fire Trail, which is just a delightful track to ride. Now, whether you call it coincidence or whether you call it karma, HD got revenge on Nick for frustrating him when he was doing his time lapse. HD timed it perfectly, and his rear tyre hit a mud puddle, and it just totally collected Nick.
That thing was locked in. That's good.
Fucking hell.
That's going to be awesome on that GoPro.
I knew we had two water crossings to navigate. The first one was this creek before we got to the Cowmung, which was reasonably deep, but had a few rocks towards the end.
No, I don't think it's that. I think there's a couple of rocks near the exit. Just keep your eye out on the exit. It's not. I don't think it's that hard.
You can ride that, mate. I just went the wrong.
Okay.
It seems that the mighty DR doesn't like the cold water because for some strange reason it stalled just by itself in the middle of this water, even though the water levels were a fair way from the airbox. So that's one water crossing down and one to go, the Cowmung. So after getting through that creek crossing, I knew that the last major obstacle was the Cowmung River. And I'd only ever tried to cross this once before, and we couldn't get across. The water was too high and flowing too hard. So I was kind of interested to see what the water levels were going to be like in the Cowmung. And while the water levels weren't a problem, it was an extremely rocky bottom. It was very rough and very rocky. So we opted to walk the bikes across rather than risk drowning them. And the exit on the other side wasn't overly steep, but it was just really loose and really soft. So one by one, we got the bikes across and up the other side without any major drama. Then we're on the final stretch of our trip, which was a delightful ride through Canangra National Park. And I had a few trails in my GPS from when some of the locals took me out a few years back. And so I showed these guys some of the trickier, steeper routes in that part of the world. All in all, it was an amazing 3 days. We covered so much incredible landscape. We rode some fantastic tracks. We had some great little adventures. And as for the 901, I couldn't have been happier. It was comfortable. It performed without any issues at all. And the way it handled off-road was just amazing. It really sort of held its ground with the lighter bikes. So I'm already planning some longer distance adventures now with the 901, and I now feel comfortable that it can not only sort of eat up the easy miles on the highway or the dirt roads, but it can certainly hold its own on the tougher off-road tracks as well.